Hey. Ah, there you are. The anomaly they can't patch, track, decode, or bury. They've been whispering your name like it's a glitch, like some cosmic typo that somehow keeps predicting outcomes before the universe updates its own script. And oh, the panic tasted delicious, didn't it? Because the moment you opened your mouth, the future listened. You think they didn't notice? You think they didn't freeze when you said something offhand, and then watched reality fold itself to match your words? They didn't call it intuition. They didn't call it talent. They called it impossible. And that's when the questions started, didn't they? Where did he come from? How did he know? What did we miss? Is he even from here? As if your mind was smuggled in from a wrong timeline, wrapped in warnings, stamped with a seal that says, "This one doesn't follow local physics. Handle with care." But you never belonged to their laws. You never played by their logic. And deep down, they knew it. You were a paradox walking on two legs, a breathing contradiction, angelic in intent, catastrophic in execution, a savior with a psychopath's precision, a villain sculpted by heaven, a miracle wrapped in mayhem. And they hated how much that terrified them. Because how do you fight someone who doesn't just play the game, but sees 3 versions of it before it even loads? You scared them with your accuracy, but you destroyed them with your timing. Every time they plotted in shadows, you were already there in the next shadow over. Waiting, knowing, smiling. They tried to predict you. But you were predicting the entire room. Movements, motives, breakdowns, betrayals, everything. You turned their random events into a connect-the-dots puzzle and finished the picture while they were still looking for the damn pencil. And oh, the way they stared at you after that. Like you weren't flesh, like you weren't mortal, like you weren't bound by the same clock they were dying under. They watched you see patterns in places where they only saw noise. They watched you call storms days before the clouds even formed. They watched you sense shifts in people before they shifted themselves. And at some point, someone in that room, someone with rank, access, and a badge heavy enough to dent a table, leaned back and whispered, "Check his file, because I don't think he's from this timeline." Ah, the delicious paranoia, because once you make them doubt reality, they start doubting themselves. Then they doubt their memories, then their decisions, then their hierarchy, and finally, they doubt where you even came from. See, that's the part they don't understand. Your mind wasn't shaped by this timeline. It was shaped by impact, by trauma sharpened into vision, by pain distilled into prophecy, by silence trained into surveillance. You earned your foresight the way warriors earn scars, with blood, with loss, with brutal clarity. You don't predict reality. Reality flinches around you. They thought they could study you, contain you, decode you. But how do you decode a storm? How do you imprison a timeline break? How do you analyze a brain that keeps writing the script while you're still reading Act 1? Your existence became a security threat, not because you hurt them, but because you understood them too well, too early, too effortlessly. You turned their entire world into a chessboard, and then stopped playing, because you realized chess was too slow. And now you walk in rooms where the air gets tight, where nervous glances bounce off you like bullets off steel. And they don't say it out loud, but every single one of them is thinking, what does he know that we don't? What did he see that we missed? What happens when he decides to act? It drives them insane, because you're not just unpredictable, you're inevitable. A timeline leak, a cosmic error, a forbidden update in human skin, the one who sees the invisible threads and pulls them anyway. So now, they watch you differently, not like a threat, not like a rival, but like a foreshadowing, a preview of a world they aren't built for, a reminder that evolution doesn't ask for permission, it just arrives wearing your face. And the funniest part, they're right to be afraid. Because once someone like you realizes the truth, once you understand that you don't predict reality, you pressure it, bend it, manipulate it, crack it open like a vault, then this timeline, this little stage, this tiny playground, it's not big enough for you anymore. You're not from here. You're not limited to here. You're not bound to the story they handed you. You're the glitch, the omen, the prophecy, the reason their systems panic at night. And now that they've realized it, now that they've admitted that you might not even be from this version of existence, there's only one question left. What reality will you rewrite next? You feel that, don't you? That subtle tightening in the air whenever you enter a room, as if reality itself inhales, hesitates, and waits for you to make the next move. Because deep down, everyone around you knows something they'll never dare say out loud. You don't just walk through the world. You tilt it, bend it, rewrite it, as if you're editing a timeline that doesn't fully belong to them. And that is what keeps them awake at 3 in the morning, scrolling through conspiracy threads about you, trying to figure out what version of the universe accidentally dropped you off here. See, they want to believe you're lucky, or gifted, or blessed, anything that makes you human enough to categorize, file, and forget. But the evidence? The evidence keeps glitching. You call outcomes hours, days, months before the data even exists. You sense betrayal pulsating beneath someone's smile. You walk into a room and instantly read tensions that others ignore for years. You feel shifts in the collective consciousness like tremors before an earthquake. Who does that? Who sees behind the curtain without ever lifting it? Someone not built by this timeline. Someone shaped by something much older, deeper, darker. Someone like you. And when they watch you predict reality, it's not the predictions that break them. It's what the predictions say about them. Because every time you call the future, you expose their blindness, their fragility, their dependence on systems, rules, equations, and probabilities that you consistently undo with nothing but instinct. You're a threat because you don't rely on what they rely on. You don't need tools. You don't need confirmation. You don't need permission. You just know. And that kind of knowing isn't taught here. It's imported. But here's the part that haunts them the most. You don't brag. You don't announce. You don't perform the way prophets and frauds do. Your accuracy is almost inconveniently casual. A quiet comment, a passing remark, a soft, uninterested certainty. And then, boom. Reality folds around your words like you spoke from a script written 6 universes ahead. It's not theatrics. It's not magic. It's not coincidence. It's alignment. You're aligned with something they can't measure, can't quantify, can't neutralize. You don't observe the timeline. You intercept it. You catch its signals before they crystallize. You read its intentions before it manifests. You adjust your position before the moment even arrives. And that terrifies them, because it means you're operating on a field they can't step onto. A vantage point they can't climb to. A level they were never meant to see. So of course they started asking, is he really from this timeline? Did we overlook something in his past? Has he been exposed to something? Who trained him? What does he know that we don't? Paranoia, the sweetest perfume in the world. But what truly cracks their sanity? It's not that your mind predicts reality, it's that your mind corrects it. You've lived through storms that should have broken you. You've watched entire phases of your life collapse like dying galaxies. You rebuilt yourself from rubble, from betrayal, from silence, from scars that still vibrate when the air gets cold. Pain rewired you. Loss recalibrated you. Survival reprogrammed you. Your brain isn't from this timeline because it was carved in dimensions of suffering they've never stepped into. Your instincts aren't from this world because they were refined in moments that almost ended you. That's why you sense things early, why you see the invisible, why your mind speaks to realities that haven't arrived yet. You're not ahead of the timeline. The timeline is lagging behind you. You're not reading the future is reading you. You are the variable it adjusts to, the anomaly it orbits, the glitch it can't patch. And now they're scared. Because once someone realizes you're not just lucky, not just sharp, not just intuitive, but inhumanly aligned with something beyond local cause and effect, there's only one conclusion they can draw. You are not reacting to the world. You are instructing it, a walking directive, a self-fulfilling prophecy, a mental event horizon where their logic breaks down. And the question that really keeps them sweating, the one that turns their confidence into dust, if he can predict reality, what happens when he decides to change it? Because you've only been forecasting. You haven't even started rewriting, not yet. But you will. And when you do, this timeline, their timeline, will fracture like thin ice under a giant. Because it was never designed to contain someone like you. It wasn't reinforced for your level of awareness. It wasn't built to withstand the weight of someone operating with cosmic foresight. You're the crack they didn't see coming. The update they didn't approve. The version of yourself that slipped through the firewall and landed here, fully awake. And now that you're aware of what you are, now that you've seen how they look at you, now that you've understood why they whisper your name, like it's a classified anomaly, there's only one truth left to accept. You're not living in this timeline. You're leading it. You're warping it. You're dragging it into the future by sheer force of will. So the real question isn't, is your mind from this timeline? The real question is, what timeline will be forced to form around you next? When you finally stop predicting and start commanding. You feel it building, don't you? That pressure in the air, that low hum beneath your ribs, that eerie electric awareness that you're not following reality anymore. You're pulling it behind you like a comet dragging its own tail. Because once they realized you weren't guessing, weren't theorizing, weren't throwing darts at cosmic corkboards, they panicked. They didn't show it on their faces, of course. No. Humans are far too delicate for honesty. But their eyes betrayed them the second you opened your mouth, and the universe nodded in agreement. That's when the whispers sharpened. He's not one of us. He's not from here. He's bleeding information he shouldn't have. He sees the timeline like it's a damn map. You didn't just make predictions. You ruined their sense of control. They built their whole identity on cause and effect. A, B, C, nice and tidy, predictable, safe. And then you walked in and rewrote the alphabet. You called storms before clouds existed. You sensed disasters before the ground even cracked. You felt betrayals the moment someone's heartbeat shifted. You anticipated entire emotional arcs, the rise, the collapse, the meltdown, before the other person even understood what they were feeling. Who does that? someone whose brain wasn't handcrafted in this soft little version of Earth they cling to, someone forged under pressure that bends lesser minds into dust, someone who evolved in timelines far more brutal than this one. You're not ahead of the curve. You are the curve. And oh, the moment they realized it, that's when the fear turned religious, because suddenly you weren't just a person anymore. You were a phenomenon, a breach in their understanding, a walking paradox wrapped in skin. You don't think they saw it? Those moments when you spoke softly, casually, and the whole room froze because your words felt like déjà vu happening in advance. You triggered something ancient in them, something their biology didn't evolve to comprehend. Humans fear predators, but they worship anomalies. And you, my friend, you became both. A mind sharp enough to predict reality and silent enough to terrify it. They started observing you like an unstable star, measuring your patterns, tracking your choices, documenting your intuition like it was nuclear intelligence. You became a case study they were afraid to publish, a rumor with a heartbeat, a myth in progress. And here's what none of them will ever admit. It wasn't the accuracy of your predictions that disturbed them. Accuracy can be explained. Patterns can be analyzed. It was the effortlessness. You weren't straining. You weren't sweating. You weren't even trying. You were just sensing, as if somewhere inside you, behind your memories and beneath your scars, there's an antenna tuned to frequencies this timeline was never meant to broadcast. As if you're listening to a version of the universe that runs parallel to theirs. A version that's always one beat ahead. As if you carried over instincts from a life you don't consciously remember. That's why they started asking if your mind is even from this timeline. Not as a joke, not as a metaphor, not as flattery, but because it is the only explanation that doesn't shatter their worldview entirely. Because if you are from this timeline, if you are a product of this reality, if you developed this level of foresight without assistance, without mutation, without intervention, without cosmic inheritance, then it means evolution didn't just advance. It skipped, it leapt, it ruptured, it collided with something beyond comprehension, and you were the end result. You are what happens when consciousness takes a shortcut through hell and comes out crystalline. You are what happens when trauma doesn't destroy a mind, but weaponizes it, and that terrifies them more than any prophecy ever could, because now they have to ask themselves, if he sees reality before we do, what else does he see? What else has he noticed? What else is he hiding? What else is he waiting for? They don't fear your predictions. They fear your silence. Because if this is what you reveal, what about the things you don't? What about the futures you haven't spoken out loud? What about the truths you've sensed but haven't shared? What about the shifts you've already felt coming? The ones that will shatter everything they built their certainty on. Your power isn't prophecy. It's perception sharpened into a blade. It's awareness honed by suffering. It's intuition sculpted by survival. It's pattern recognition carved from nights where everything tried to kill you and failed. You earned this mind. You forged it. You bled for it. You paid the price other people don't even realize exists. So no, your mind isn't from this timeline. It's from every timeline you should have died in but didn't. Every reality that tried to break you but upgraded you instead. Every version of yourself that collapsed so this one could rise. You are the final iteration, the convergence point. The version that survived enough universes known to see through them. And now that you're awake, now that you're aware of the power you carry, now that they know you're seeing things they can't. The next question is the one that truly haunts them. If you've spent your whole life predicting reality, what happens when you finally decide to reshape it? You notice how people stare at you now? Not directly, never directly. They glance, flick their eyes away, glance again, like children looking at a storm they don't understand but can feel in their bones. Because something about you feels out of sync with the world they know. Not broken, not damaged, just operating on a frequency their nervous systems were never designed to process. You became the human equivalent of a future event. A foreshadowing, a leak in the simulation, a preview the universe accidentally released early. And it unnerves them, because every instinct they rely on, body language, tone, micro-expressions, situational patterns, all of those things crumble around you. Why? Because you already know the ending before the scene begins. You walk into conversations you've already lived through. You navigate betrayals you sensed months before the first lie was spoken. You sidestep chaos like someone who remembers stepping in it from another life. You're not lucky. You're not blessed. You're not gifted. You are experienced in ways they cannot conceptualize. You've lived more timelines than they've lived memories. You've survived more endings than they've survived beginnings. So when someone's tone shifts, when someone's motives sour, when someone's mask slips, you pick it up instantly. Not because you're paranoid, not because you're analytical, but because your soul remembers what your mind hasn't told you yet. And that's what terrifies them. You move like you're carrying information nobody gave you. You speak like you're referencing files nobody opened. You decide like you've already seen the consequences. Who are they supposed to be in the presence of someone like that? The villain? The ally? The bystander? The casualty? They don't know. And that's exactly why their fear feels like electricity when you walk in. Because you shattered the illusion that reality is linear. You shattered the belief that time is stable. You shattered the idea that they control anything at all. You made them confront the possibility that they are living in your retelling, not their original version. And here's the part that messes with their heads the most. You don't act surprised by anything. Nothing catches you off guard. Nothing rattles you. Nothing slams you into panic. Pain. You've predicted it. Loss. You've adjusted to it before it arrived. Chaos. You've already mapped its trajectory. Do you know how unsettling it is to stand next to someone who doesn't flinch when their world shifts? Someone who reacts like they were waiting for the moment to happen. Someone whose stillness feels like transferable trauma from another realm. Someone whose calm implies knowledge. It breaks them. It breaks their ego, their logic, their confidence, their perception. Because if you knew, why didn't they? If you sensed it, why didn't they? If you predicted it, what else have you predicted? They can't stop thinking about it. It claws at their sleep. It eats their certainty alive. And the whispers grow darker. What if he's not guessing? What if he's remembering? What if he didn't learn this? What if he brought it with him? People start treating you like a breach in the wall of their universe. A tear in the fabric. A walking reminder that existence is bigger, stranger, harsher, and more fluid than they ever imagined. You became the question they're too afraid to ask. If he sees the future, who wrote it? And deeper than that, is it him? Because your pattern isn't prediction, it's authorship. Your life didn't give you intuition. It gave you data, collected across endless cycles of pain, Pressure, trauma, rebirth, collapse, awakening, silence. Your ability to sense the timeline isn't mystical, it's mechanical. You've lived through so many shifts that you recognize the texture of change before anyone else feels the tremor. You read energy like a second language. You read consequences like muscle memory. You read people like unfinished scripts. Hello again, little doubters. Remember when they laughed? When every word you spoke was treated like insanity with a punchline? They thought you were playing prophet in a clown suit, a glitch in the system, a myth in motion. But what happens when the myth starts bleeding into reality? When the storm you described in detail 3 years ago starts unfolding frame by frame, right on cue, in their lives, their streets, their damn dreams. They used to mock the words, now. They're studying the footage with cold hands and wide eyes, asking questions they never wanted answered. They're replaying your voice. But this time, it's whispered in war rooms, beneath redacted memos and sleepless monitors. Because the prophecy you dropped like a joke just shattered their worldview. And now, they're terrified. Not just of what's happening, but who saw it coming. You. You were the crazy one until your madness became a map. A cheat code blueprint for exactly what's unraveling now. They called you delusional. But guess what? Delusions don't come true. Unless they were warnings all along. And now that your words are manifesting like clockwork, their silence isn't peace, it's panic in disguise. You see, every generation buries its oracles, drowns its seers, burns its architects of pain, until the ground cracks open, until the signs they ignored turn into sirens. And you're the siren now. The bell they tried to unring, the echo that keeps getting louder, no matter how many times they switch off the feed. They wanted a court jester, but they accidentally birthed a ghostwriter for their demise. They mocked the prophecy without realizing it had a timer attached, and now it's too late. Because this version of you, the one who bled in silence, evolved in shadows, and coded truth into chaos, is no longer giving warnings, you're giving verdicts, and the punishment is knowing you were right, knowing they're trapped in the very future they ridiculed you for predicting. The laughter's dead, and you didn't kill it. You just let the truth breathe long enough to finish the job. Isn't that poetic? They called you paranoid. Now their dreams have your fingerprints. They said you were making it up. Now the headlines are plagiarizing your nightmares. They said none of that would ever happen. And now they're begging for a delay that was never on the clock. And here's the darkest part. They don't fear the prophecy itself anymore. They fear the fact that you made it, that you said it. With no resources, no team, no support, just a grin and a glitch in your eye. They fear that if you were right about that, what else did they miss? What else is crawling down the timeline, just waiting to prove you right again? Now they're digging through your past like detectives in a panic, looking for more jokes that might be time bombs in disguise. Your old rants, now they're classified briefings. Your broken moments, now they're case studies in weaponized foresight. They're trying to unsee it, trying to convince themselves it was coincidence. But deep down, they know the truth. They know that something entered this world through your madness, a seed of terror, rooted in your pain, watered by rejection, and now blooming in the shape of their undoing. You aren't just the ghost in the system anymore. You are the system they didn't account for. The final twist in their algorithm, the variable they can't simulate, can't silence, can't stop. because a man with a prophecy is dangerous. But a man whose prophecy came true, that's a walking apocalypse with a pulse. And you are that pulse. The ticking they can't localize, the echo they can't contain, the warning that grew fangs, so don't flinch when they tremble. They should. They were warned. They just didn't listen. And now, they don't need to. They'll feel it, frame by frame, day by day, until they finally admit the truth. You were never crazy. You were just early, and early prophets. They don't get apologies. They get revenge, disguised as history. Tick-tock, hear that? That's not a clock anymore. That's your pulse echoing through their walls. They used to ignore it. Now it's all they can hear. They thought prophecies belonged to dusty books and fading saints. They didn't understand that sometimes a prophecy wears a cracked smile, a scarred voice, a coat soaked in the rain of a city that never forgave you. They didn't understand that sometimes a prophecy walks right past them in daylight, laughing, bleeding, learning, gathering data with every betrayal, until it becomes a mirror they can't smash. Do you remember how they spoke about you? They used to say you were just too intense. They used to whisper, "He's not well," when you left the room. They used to catalog your pain like it was evidence in a trial you couldn't win. And you let them. You let them build their case because you knew the day would come when the evidence would flip like a coin in the air, land face up, and reveal the picture of them, not you. That day is here. Now they're waking up to headlines that read like your old notebooks. Now they're scrolling through feeds, littered with the same words you spat when nobody would listen. They're staring at the sky, waiting for the next sign, because the last one came exactly when you said it would. And that's the paradox they can't escape. They mocked the prophecy, but the prophecy built their cage. They buried you in ridicule, but the ridicule became fertilizer. You didn't die underground. You germinated. Every insult, every eye roll, every dismissal turned into roots, wrapping around the foundation of their world. Now the roots are cracking the concrete. Now your voice, the same voice they ignored, is seeping up through the fractures like smoke from a fire they swore was impossible. And you're still smiling. Not because you're cruel, but because you understand. You understand that darkness and light are just tools. You understand that saint and psychopath are masks you can switch at will. You understand that unpredictability is power, because a straight line can be followed, but a maze devours its pursuers. They thought pain would break you, but pain is what sharpened you into a blade so thin they never saw it slide under their skin. They thought exile would silence you, but exile taught you to speak in frequencies only their nightmares could decode. They thought ridicule would erase you, but ridicule taught you patience, and patience taught you timing, and timing is everything. Now you're not just the prophet, you're the living countdown. Every move you make feels like a signal. Every breath you take triggers another panic meeting. They're watching your hands, studying your posture, trying to guess what's next, because you've turned into a walking, breathing algorithm of inevitability. This is the part nobody tells you about. The moment the prophecy comes true, you stop being a person. You become a phenomenon. They don't see your face anymore. They see a trigger. They don't hear your words anymore. They hear a siren. They don't think he was right. They think, what else is hidden? And that's where the real power lives, in the unknown, in the silence you leave after each sentence, in the gaps between your appearances, in the things you haven't said yet, because they're starting to believe the unsaid is already on its way. They built their lives on certainty. You injected uncertainty like poison into the well. Now every drink tastes like doubt. Now every smile hides a question. Now every prophecy they once mocked feels like a deadline they can't outrun. And through it all, you walk, not running, not hiding. Walking, slow, deliberate, like a storm front moving across a dead sea. The same grin they mocked now looks like an omen. The same eyes they dismissed now look like a horizon they can't read. That's evolution through pain. That's unpredictability as power. That's how a prophecy turns into a legend, and a legend turns into a law, and a law turns into a ghost that can't be killed because it lives in the minds of the terrified. So when you speak again, don't shout. Whisper. Let the whisper do what the scream never could. Let it crawl under their skin, into their subconscious, until it becomes their own thought. Because the prophecy they mocked came true. But the prophecy you haven't spoken yet, that's the one they'll build bunkers for. That's the one that will make them watch you like a comet. Terrified of the impact, knowing they can't stop it, knowing it's already too late. And when that day comes, you won't need to say a word. They'll already hear it. Tick, tock. Your silence will finish the sentence. Now step forward. Watch them recoil. They thought you were a joke, but you became the punchline that turned into a prophecy, and the prophecy that turned into a reckoning. Tick, tock, tick, tock. Feel how the air itself changes when you move. That's not paranoia, that's resonance. That's your name turning into a frequency their walls can't block, their algorithms can't scrub, their prayers can't drown. Once, you were just a noise. Now you're a pattern they can't decode. They built firewalls for lies, but you were never a lie. You were a signal in disguise. They laughed at the prophecy, called it superstition, called you unstable. And yet every decision they made led them straight to the mouth of the vision you whispered. It's poetic, isn't it? The very people who mocked the warning have now walked into the trapdoor of their own arrogance. Look at them now. Look at the way their hands shake when they scroll. Look at the way their eyes dart when they see your face on a screen. They're not mocking anymore. They're studying. They're watching the clips again and again, like forensic scientists at a crime scene. But you're not a crime scene. You're the evidence of inevitability. They used to think prophecies were far away. Scrolls and temples, shadows and incense. They never imagined a prophecy with blood under its fingernails, urban light on its teeth, and a laugh like broken glass. They never imagined a prophecy that walks like a man, sleeps like a man, smiles like a demon who remembers being an angel. But here you are, and here's the part they'll never admit. They need you. They need to believe someone saw it coming. It's easier than believing they built their own destruction brick by brick. So now your name becomes a talisman. Your words become coordinates. Your silence becomes a countdown. The paradox is delicious. The more they fear you, the more they depend on you. The more they hate you, the more they mimic you. They ridicule your shadow, then copy your steps in secret. They spit on the prophecy, then follow it like a map when no one's watching. Do you feel the power in that? Power isn't in being liked. Power is in being unavoidable. Power is in becoming the storm they laughed off until they woke up inside it. You've crossed the line where predictions end and destiny begins. Your pain was the crucible. Your rejection was the apprenticeship. Every scar, every betrayal, every night you thought you were losing, all of it etched the pattern deeper. All of it trained you to walk through fire without burning, and through silence without disappearing. That's why they can't stop you now, because you've become two things at once: the warning they ignored and the consequence they can't escape. Saint/psychopath, angel/demon, prophet/ghost. Every time they think they have you cornered, you slip into the opposite role, and the roles keep feeding each other until you're no longer a person. You're an event, a phenomenon, a myth breathing in real time. That's why the room goes cold when your name is whispered. That's why even your silence feels like a threat. Because unpredictability isn't just a tactic, it's an atmosphere, it's a climate, it's a gravity they can't escape. And now, as they stand in the ruins of their laughter, they finally understand what you've known all along. Mockery is free, but prophecy has a price, and they've just paid it. So keep walking, slow, deliberate. Let the echo of your footsteps do the work. You don't have to raise your voice. You don't have to warn them anymore. The prophecy they mocked came true, and the prophecy you haven't spoken yet is already moving under their feet like a fault line. When you speak again, make it a whisper, make it a riddle, make it a mirror. Let them see themselves in it. Let them feel the panic crawl up their spine before they even understand the words. Because this is not the end of the story. This is just the part where they realize the story was never theirs to begin with. It was yours. It's always been yours. You're not waiting for the world to change. The world is waiting for your next sentence. And that's the real terror. That's the real prophecy. That's the storm they can't laugh off anymore. And when it hits, they won't be able to say you didn't warn them. Every sound is a heartbeat now. Not just yours, theirs. They're synchronized to you without even knowing it. They refresh their feeds when you move. They hold their breath when you pause. They're watching a man, but they're experiencing an omen. This is the part of the prophecy no one ever told them about. Once it comes true, it doesn't stop. It mutates. It spreads. It turns the one who spoke it into a moving axis. Every compass points to you now. Even the ones they swear they've hidden. They used to scoff at you like a street preacher shouting in the rain. They thought you were talking to no one. But you were talking to time. You were carving your words into the seconds themselves. And time remembers everything. Now when they replay your old tapes, they hear the tremor in your voice. They thought it was weakness. It was the frequency of inevitability. They thought your eyes looked mad. They were reflecting futures they couldn't handle. They thought your smile was a mask. It was a scar forming into a weapon. They've built entire think tanks to decode you. They've hired analysts, hackers, priests, psychologists. They can't agree on what you are. Some call you a fluke. Some call you a monster. Some whisper words like Messiah. In hallways they keep locked. But they all agree on one thing. You can't be ignored. And this is how power actually feels. Not like applause, not like adoration. It feels like a collective shudder. It feels like a room full of people pretending not to look at you, while their minds orbit you like satellites. They wanted you predictable. Predictability is safe. Predictability can be bought, cancelled, destroyed. But you trained yourself to become paradox. You trained yourself to be both the blade and the hand, the laugh and the scream, the saint and the sinner. Every time they think they've got your pattern, you slip through it. Every time they think they've trapped you in a definition, you mutate. That's not chaos, that's mastery. Pain taught you how. Pain carved out the cavities where your patience lives. Pain gave you the silence that terrifies them more than your words. Pain taught you timing, and timing turned into prophecy. Prophecy turned into reality. Reality turned into legend, and legend turned into you. Standing here, breathing, while they whisper like villagers under a blood moon. They're not laughing at the prophecy anymore. They're bargaining with it. They're rewriting memos to make it look like they saw it coming, too. They're holding secret meetings about your next move. They're wondering what else you know. They're trying to extract a roadmap from your eyes. And here's the deepest cruelty. The roadmap doesn't exist. You are the roadmap. You are the glitch. You are the secret they can't buy or bury. That's why you don't rush. That's why you walk slow. Slow is lethal when they expect fast. Silence is deafening when they expect noise. A smile is nuclear when they expect rage. So walk. Watch the panic ripple. They can smell it now. The inevitability. They can smell the end of their certainty. They can smell the future you built from the ashes of their mockery. And when you speak again, let it be soft. Let it be like a match dropped in a room full of gas. Let it be a single phrase that echoes through every corner of their networks. I told you. Then watch the collapse. Watch them race to reinterpret history, to frame your prophecy as an accident, to convince themselves they were in on it all along. But they'll know. In the quiet hours, they'll know. They'll see your grin in their reflections. They'll hear your words in their nightmares. They'll feel your prophecy in their bones. That's the real terror. Not the event, not the consequences, but you. Still out there, still unscripted, still walking, carrying prophecies they haven't heard yet. Each step you take is a drumbeat. Each silence you hold is a warning. And they can't look away. They can't unhear. They can't stop you. Because the prophecy they mocked came true. And the next one? It's already on its way. This is how legends breathe. This is how power moves. This is how a man becomes a storm, and a storm becomes a fate they can't outrun. Keep walking. They're not just terrified. They're transfixed. And that's the final revelation. Fear is the new gravity, and you are the planet they're falling toward. The sound fills the whole room now. It's not just a clock anymore. It's a heartbeat, a drum, a verdict. The same rhythm they once mocked in you has become the pulse of their reality. Look at them, eyes down, hands clasped, breathing like prey. They don't even realize it yet, but they're already inside the prophecy. They're already moving on your timeline. They're already living inside your words. And you're not shouting. You're not fighting. You're not even trying. You're just standing there, half light, half shadow, smiling like a saint who knows he's also the executioner. That's the part that terrifies them the most. Not the power, not the prophecy, the composure, the stillness, the sense that you've already seen this play to the end, and you're just watching it unfold like a script. That's the secret they never understood. It was never about predicting. It was about becoming inevitable. So here's how it ends. You stop talking. You let the silence bloom until it feels like thunder. You let them feel the weight of every word you ever spoke. You let them understand, finally, that the joke wasn't on you. It was on them. You step closer, slow, deliberate. You don't have to raise your hand. You don't have to raise your voice. You don't have to prove a thing. You just lean in, whisper a single sentence that will echo in their skulls for years. I warned you. Now you'll remember me. And then you turn away. No drama, no farewell, just a shadow sliding back into the dark. That's it. That's the end of the prophecy. Not with an explosion, but with a presence so heavy they can't breathe. Not with applause, but with silence. The silence of understanding. The silence of fear. Because now they know. Now they'll never forget. And now, the next prophecy is already walking. you're gone, but the echo stays. Well, 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 be calm. Feel that pressure in the air, that tightness in your chest that isn't fear. It's recognition. Something just shifted, and every instinct in the room knows it wasn't supposed to. They're genuinely afraid now, not nervous, not curious, afraid. And it's not because of noise or numbers or threats. It's because one man did what a whole coven couldn't stop, and that breaks the oldest rule they live by. Power is supposed to be predictable. You shattered that lie without asking permission. They were trained to deal with crowds, with movements, with mobs they can label and categorize and drown in policy and distraction. They know how to suffocate a wave. But you weren't a wave. You were a fracture. A single pressure point that collapsed the structure from the inside. No chants, no banners, just precision, silence. Timing so clean, it felt illegal. And now every system that fed on certainty is malfunctioning because you don't fit the math. Here's the part they'll never say out loud. They didn't lose because they were weak. They lost because you evolved somewhere pain was supposed to kill you. You didn't heal the way they expected. You didn't break the way they planned. You metabolized suffering into clarity. You turned wounds into instruments. That's what scares them. Not your anger, not your ambition, your calm, that saintly stillness paired with a psychopath's accuracy, angel posture, demon instincts. That contradiction short-circuits every playbook they have. They gather in rooms and whisper your name like it's a glitch. They replay the moment again and again, trying to find where the ritual failed, where the protection slipped, where the numbers betrayed them. And every time they reach the same conclusion they can't accept. There was nothing wrong with the system. You were just outside it. You see, a coven survives by consensus, by agreement, by shared fear dressed up as unity. They need each other to feel powerful. You didn't. You moved alone. You acted when hesitation was expected. You spoke when silence was supposed to shame you. Or worse, you stayed silent when they needed you to react. That's when the fear became real. Because unpredictability isn't chaos, it's sovereignty. You learned something they never did. Light isn't fragile. Darkness isn't evil. They're tools. You learned when to glow just enough to disarm, when to go dark enough to disappear, and when to stand in between so no one could tell which one you were. That's why they can't profile you. That's why every label slides off. Hero, monster, victim, threat. None of it sticks because you're not playing a role. You're running an operating system. They expected guilt. You gave them composure. They expected rage. You gave them strategy. They expected you to beg, to explain, to justify. You gave them results. And results terrify people who survive on control. Do you understand what it does to a group built on rituals and hierarchy when one man ignores the ceremony and still wins? It exposes the truth they've been hiding from themselves. Their power was borrowed. Yours is earned, paid for in nights you didn't think you'd survive. In moments where your mind went places they've never been brave enough to visit. You didn't just endure the dark. You studied it. You learned its angles. You learned how it moves when it thinks no one's watching. That's why they're afraid now. Because they know you didn't peek. You didn't fluke your way through. What you did wasn't luck. It was inevitable. And inevitability is the one thing no coven, no council, no closed circle can negotiate with. They feel it in their bodies before they admit it in their thoughts. That sense that the rules don't protect them anymore. That the old signals don't summon safety. That somewhere out there is a man who doesn't need permission, doesn't need validation, doesn't need allies to move reality 1 inch off its axis, and that inch was enough to make everything wobble. You're not loud about it. That's the cruel elegance of it. You don't announce dominance. You let outcomes speak. You let silence do the damage. You let them exhaust themselves, trying to contain something that already passed through. And every attempt to box you in only proves how small the box really is. This is the paradox they can't survive. You look composed, almost gentle, while embodying a threat they can't map. You're proof that evolution doesn't always look violent. Sometimes it looks like a man who understands himself so completely that nothing outside him can be used as leverage. No guilt, no fear, no bait. They wanted a fight. You gave them a lesson. They wanted a war. You gave them a mirror. They wanted to stop you. You made them aware. And awareness is irreversible. From this point on, every move you make echoes louder than 10 people screaming. Every choice carries weight because they know now. You're capable of stepping outside the spell. You're capable of doing what groups swear requires numbers, bloodlines, backing, permission. You already proved otherwise. That's the crack they can't seal. They're genuinely afraid now, and they should be. Not because you're coming for them, but because you no longer need to. The moment you became uncontainable, the game ended. Everything after this is just them learning to live in a world where one man showed them the truth they were never meant to face. Power doesn't gather. It condenses. And when it does, nothing ceremonial can stop it. They don't tell each other this part, but it's there, sitting heavy in the pauses between their words. The fear isn't about what you did. It's about what you can do now that you know. Because the moment a man realizes he doesn't need the structure, the hierarchy collapses into theater. And they can feel it. Every meeting, every alliance, every whispered strategy suddenly sounds hollow, like actors rehearsing lines after the audience already left. You crossed a threshold they thought was guarded by numbers, by blood oaths, by legacy. You crossed it alone, and once that happens, once a single mind proves the gate was psychological, not physical, every guardian becomes ornamental. That's when fear turns primal. That's when the coven stops believing in its own protection. They keep asking the wrong question. They ask, how did he do it? When the real question is, why didn't we see him coming? And the answer terrifies them because it indicts their entire worldview. You weren't hiding. You were becoming, quietly, patiently, letting life sandblast the unnecessary parts off you until all that remained was function. You learned early that pain is an accelerant. Most people anesthetize it. You refined it. You learned which hurts sharpened you and which ones were distractions. You learned how to look broken enough to be underestimated, calm enough to be trusted, and distant enough to never be owned. That combination, that's lethal to any system that relies on prediction. They assumed morality would slow you down. They assumed empathy would soften you. They assumed scars would make you hesitate. They never understood the paradox that defines you. You feel deeply, and that's exactly why you act decisively. You know the cost. You've paid it already. There's nothing left they can threaten you with that you haven't survived in private. That's why their intimidation doesn't land. That's why their warnings feel quaint. They're speaking from a place of preservation. You're operating from a place of evolution, different languages, different physics. They want stability. You want truth. And truth doesn't care who's comfortable. Watch how they change around you. Watch the eyes avert, the laughter tighten, the way your presence recalibrates the room, even when you say nothing. That's not respect. That's assessment. That's predators realizing another predator entered the ecosystem, but one that doesn't signal aggression the way they do. One that doesn't posture. One that doesn't need to dominate to dominate. You've become a contradiction they can't resolve. Too controlled to be reckless. Too fluid to be controlled. Too self-aware to be manipulated. Too quiet to be provoked. You don't react on their schedule. You don't validate their narratives. You don't fit into enemy or ally. You exist as an independent variable, and independent variables terrify systems built on equations. They used to believe power was loud, that it announced itself, that it needed symbols, rituals, proof. You taught them something colder. Real power moves without witnesses and leaves consequences instead of signatures. It doesn't demand belief. It forces adjustment. And here's the part they really don't want to admit. Your restraint scares them more than your potential violence ever could. Because restraint implies choice. It implies that what they've seen so far isn't the ceiling, it's the floor. It implies you're not acting out of impulse, but out of calibration. That every move is weighed, not rushed. That when you do decide to move again, it won't be emotional, it will be final. They sense it, that hum under the surface, the feeling that you're not done becoming, that whatever version of you did what a whole coven couldn't stop is already outdated, that there's a quieter, sharper iteration forming right now, fed by observation, by silence, by understanding how fear propagates through groups like a virus. You see, fear makes people sloppy. It makes them over-coordinate. It makes them betray themselves, trying to protect their image. And you see all of it. You always did. You just didn't have the leverage before. Now you do, not because you hold something over them, but because you've removed yourself from needing anything from them at all. That's the final fracture. The realization that you're not trying to win their game. You're not trying to replace them. You're not even trying to destroy them. You've stepped into a lane where their existence is irrelevant to your trajectory. And nothing destabilizes a power structure faster than irrelevance. They're genuinely afraid now, because they finally understand this wasn't rebellion. It was proof. Proof that one integrated mind, one man who fused light and dark instead of choosing sides, can outperform an entire network built on fear of standing alone. You didn't escape the system, you outgrew it. And once that happens, there's no going back. Not for you, not for them. Because from here on out, every time they gather, every time they invoke tradition, every time they tell themselves they're still in control, there will be a silent counter-thought they can't erase. If one man did that, what else is possible? That question will haunt them longer than any threat ever could. And that question doesn't just linger, it corrodes. It eats through their confidence in quiet moments, when the noise dies down and the rituals stop working. Because deep down, they know the answer terrifies them more than any enemy ever could. If one man could do this without permission, without backing, without blessing, then the fortress was never real. It was a story they agreed to believe because belief felt safer than standing alone. You broke that spell. You didn't storm the gates. You didn't declare war. You simply walked through a space they assumed was guarded by destiny and discovered it was guarded by fear. Their fear. And once fear is exposed, it can't masquerade as authority anymore. That's why they keep trying to reframe you. They need you to be a villain, or a fluke, or an anomaly. Anything that preserves the illusion that the system still works. Anything that keeps them from facing the truth that burns the most. They were never necessary. You see it now, the way power really operates. It isn't centralized. It isn't inherited. It doesn't respond to chants or crowns or closed-door agreements. Power responds to alignment, to a man whose thoughts, instincts, and actions are no longer at war with each other. A man who stopped fragmenting himself to survive and instead integrated every contradiction into a single, focused will. That's why your presence disrupts rooms. You're not leaking energy trying to be understood. You're not negotiating your identity. You're not asking where you belong. You already know. And knowing who you are is an unspoken declaration that rattles anyone still performing for approval. They sense it in your posture, in the way you don't rush to fill silence, in the way you listen without revealing your hand, in the way you don't over-explain. You don't need consensus to validate your reality. And people who built their power on consensus feel naked around that. They were counting on your doubt, on your guilt, on your need to be accepted. Those were the hooks they sharpened for years, the levers they used to move men like pieces. But you burned the hooks out of yourself in the dark, when nobody was watching. You learned how to sit with discomfort until it told you the truth. You learned how to let identities die without panicking. You learned how to lose things that once defined you and discover that you were still intact. That's when you stopped being manageable. They confused your stillness for mercy. They mistake your composure for hesitation. They don't realize that stillness is where you calculate, where you observe patterns, where you decide whether something is worth your energy at all. You're not passive, you're selective. And selection is the most dangerous upgrade a man can make. Because now when you move, it's not reactive, it's surgical, it's informed, it's timed to intersect with inevitability. You don't fight resistance head on. You let it exhaust itself against your absence. You let them reveal themselves. You let them overplay, overreach, over-explain. You let fear turn them into caricatures of power while you remain unreadable. And the more unreadable you become, the more they project. They'll assign motives you don't have. They'll accuse you of intentions you never voiced. They'll warn others about you in tones that betray them, not because of what you've done, but because of what you represent. The possibility that control was always conditional, that obedience was always optional, that the spell only worked because enough people agreed not to question it. You're the question now. You're the living proof that the line between saint and psychopath isn't morality, it's awareness. That angels and demons are just different masks worn by force, depending on who's judging. You don't need to pick a side because you understand both. You know when to be gentle enough to disarm and when to be cold enough to end a pattern. You know that compassion without boundaries is self-destruction, and boundaries without compassion are tyranny. You stand in the tension between them, and that tension makes you powerful. That's why the Coven failed. They were unified, but not integrated. They were loud, but not aligned. They were many, but divided internally by fear of standing out, fear of being replaced, fear of being exposed. You were one and wholeness beats numbers every time. Now they're scrambling to adapt. They tighten ranks. They add layers. They invoke tradition harder. They mistake complexity for strength. But complexity is brittle. It cracks under pressure. Simplicity endures. And you are simple now, not naive, not soft, but clear. You know what matters. You know what doesn't. You know where your line is. And lines drawn by men who know themselves are not suggestions. They're genuinely afraid now because they can't unsee you. Even if you disappear tomorrow, the damage is done. You've altered their internal map of reality. You've proven that evolution doesn't need permission slips, that sovereignty isn't granted, It's claimed that the most dangerous man in the room is the one who no longer needs the room at all. And here's the final truth they'll never say, but you already know. This isn't the end of your transformation. This is the stabilization phase. This is where power stops feeling dramatic and starts feeling normal. This is where you no longer need to prove anything, because proof follows you like a shadow. This is where you move slower, speak less, and see more. Where every step you take is lighter, because you're not dragging old versions of yourself behind you anymore. They're afraid because they sense what comes next, and they know they won't be able to stop it. Not with numbers, not with rituals, not with consensus, because whatever you've become was forged where their rules don't apply. And you're just getting started. And that's the part where the silence settles in. The kind of silence that isn't empty, but loaded. The kind that follows revelation, not destruction. You feel it now, the shift from proving to being, from surviving to deciding, from reacting to choosing when, if ever, you'll move again. They thought fear would make you reckless. It didn't. It refined you. It stripped you down until only what worked remained. You're not driven by hunger anymore. You're driven by clarity. And clarity is terrifying to people who built their power on confusion, on blurred lines, on keeping everyone slightly unsure of themselves. You don't need to chase influence. It bends in your direction because you're no longer contorting yourself to earn it. You don't need to dominate conversations. Your absence already speaks louder than most people's presence. You don't need to threaten. The memory of what you've already done does that for you. They're afraid because you showed them something irreversible, that a man who integrates his light and his dark becomes ungovernable. Not chaotic, ungovernable. You can't be steered by shame. You can't be baited by praise. You can't be cornered by fear. You've walked through all of it alone and came out with your identity intact. That's why they hesitate now. That's why every move they make feels reactive. Because they know you're no longer playing for validation. You're playing for alignment. And alignment doesn't rush. It waits. It observes. It acts only when the outcome is already decided. You're not here to burn the world down. You're here to show that it was always flammable. You're not here to overthrow anyone. You're here to demonstrate that thrones are psychological furniture, useful only to those who need to sit. You're not here to be worshipped or feared. You're here to be unavoidable. One man did what a whole coven couldn't stop, because one man was willing to become whole, to face himself without witnesses, to let old identities die without applause, to stand alone long enough that standing alone stopped feeling like a threat. That's the real victory. Not dominance, not revenge, freedom from the spell. So let them be afraid, let them whisper, let them recalibrate their myths around your existence. You're not responsible for their fear. You're the evidence that fear was never protection, only a delay. You know who you are now. You know what you survived. You know what you can do. And that knowing is permanent. This isn't a warning, it's a conclusion. Well, well, well. You ever notice how the room changes the second your name is mentioned? Because tonight, oh, tonight, the whole world felt it. They didn't whisper, they winced. They didn't analyze, they folded. They didn't classify you under human activity. They stamped your file with a warning label they've never used before. Outside human jurisdiction. You know how insane that is? The United Nations, the same choir of polished diplomats who pretend they've seen everything. Wars, coups, chemical nightmares, collapsing empires. looked at a report about you, and said, "No, this isn't one of us." And the funniest part, they're right, because you're the paradox every system fears. Too calm to break, too dangerous to control, too awakened to manipulate, too silent to predict, too alive to bury. They don't have a category for someone who walks between saint and executioner like it's a hallway. Someone who can hold mercy in one hand and annihilation in the other without trembling. Someone who outgrew human, the moment pain rewired every nerve in your body into a new operating system. You think they stamped that label because you're scary? No, they stamped it because you're unexplainable. And institutions hate what they cannot explain. Your report, oh, your report. The one you didn't even write intentionally. The one that leaked through your actions, your silence, the trail of broken patterns behind you. That thing shook entire councils. Chairs got pushed back. Translators froze mid-sentence. Delegates from nations that hate each other exchanged the same terrified look. Because you didn't just break rules, you broke comprehension. They're asking questions they shouldn't even have vocabularies for. How does a person survive that? How did they see it coming? Why didn't they retaliate? How did they stay silent for that long? How did one life produce that mind? And then the question that made the room go quiet, what else are they capable of? See, that's the part you never notice about yourself. While you're busy surviving, adapting, recalibrating, the world is busy panicking, forecasting, preparing for impact. You didn't just evolve, you outpaced the species. An evolution that jumps too far ahead doesn't get applause. It gets investigated. But how do you investigate someone who doesn't fit the psychological templates? Someone who doesn't fit the trauma models? Someone who doesn't fit the fear response map? Someone who doesn't fit the human jurisdiction they rely on to stay in control? You don't. You declare them an anomaly, a glitch, a celestial error, a sovereign force, a jurisdiction of one. And that's what you are now, a lone authority walking around in human skin, confusing every system built to categorize you. You are the saint that learned from devils, and the devil that learned mercy from saints. You are the end of an old version of yourself, and the beginning of something the world was not prepared for. You know what they fear the most, not the damage you could do, but the fact you haven't done it. They fear your restraint more than your rage, your stillness more than your storm, your silence more than your shout. Because silence like yours doesn't mean peace. It means strategy. And you've become a strategist no human handbook has a chapter for. You ever notice how your presence makes liars recalculate their lies? How manipulators lose rhythm mid-sentence? How snakes suddenly develop a conscience when you walk by? That's not charisma. That's jurisdiction-level energy. You're not playing roles anymore. You're playing repercussions. You're not entering rooms. You're shifting timelines. You're not responding to life. You're rewriting its terms. And the UN felt all of that in 8 pages of your existence. 8 pages that read like a threat and a prophecy at the same time. You know what the final line of the internal memo said? Recommendation: do not provoke. Do not interfere. Do not classify. Observe only. They don't give that warning to humans. They give it to forces, to storms, to gods, to anomalies that don't bend when pressured. They gave it to you. And here's the part they'll never understand. You didn't become this through luck. You became this through suffering shaped into intelligence, heartbreak reforged into perception, betrayal converted into clairvoyance. You didn't rise. You rebuilt yourself from ashes that weren't even yours, You didn't adapt. You transcended, and transcended beings don't need permission. They don't need recognition. They don't need jurisdiction. They are jurisdiction. You're not one of them anymore. You're what happens when the universe gets bored of waiting for humans to evolve and decides to speedrun the process through one person, you. So when they say, outside human jurisdiction, don't shrink, stand taller. Because those words, those fearful, trembling words, are the closest thing to honesty the world has ever spoken about you. You crossed the invisible line no one admits exists. The line between human and something else, something ancient, something awakened, something sovereign. And the world finally said it out loud. Now the only question left is, what will you do with that kind of freedom? Because one thing is certain, and every analyst in that building knows it. Whatever comes next, it won't be decided by them. It'll be decided by you. A slow, electric stillness coils through the air as the speech continues. Not lighter, not calmer. Darker, heavier, more surgical than before. Because now we step into the part of the truth they were too afraid to put in writing. They didn't just mark you as outside human jurisdiction. They marked you as untouchable, a roaming event, a walking irregularity, a sovereign phenomenon wrapped in bone and breath. When they reviewed your file, the real file, the one that isn't on public record, the room temperature dropped by 2 degrees. One delegate actually asked if the AC malfunctioned. It didn't. That was fear, manifested physically. They read about the way you've carried pain without collapsing, and it scared them. They read about the betrayals you overcame, and it rattled them. They analyzed the patterns you broke, and it destabilized them. You didn't survive things. You absorbed them. You metabolized destruction like it was protein. Every blow that should have killed you became an upgrade. When they realized this, a psychiatrist on the panel muttered, "This resilience curve is non-human. Non-human." Do you hear that? Not inhuman as in cruel, not inhuman as in monstrous, but non-human as in beyond, as in exceeding the blueprint, as in graduated from the species. They made it sound clinical, but what they meant was supernatural. Because what human walks through fire after fire and comes out colder? What human gets stabbed in the psyche and responds with clarity? What human loses everything and gains vision? The more they evaluated you, the more their language became metaphorical. Because science collapsed under the weight of your truth. One analyst wrote, "Subjects' perception capabilities resemble mythological constructs more than psychological ones." Mythological, you know what that means? You exist in places logic refuses to enter. You think in dimensions people aren't trained to see. You act from instincts older than civilization. Your life became a case study in the limits of the human condition because you surpassed it without asking for permission. And here's the kicker. They think labeling you outside jurisdiction will contain you, when really it frees you. Humans follow laws. Phenomena follow trajectories. You're not obeying rules. You're obeying gravity, momentum, purpose. Whatever invisible force is steering your evolution from behind the scenes. And deep down, beneath their political masks, beneath their rehearsed caution, they know you weren't shaped by chance. You were forged, pressed, bent, tested, distorted, sharpened. Until you became a blade the world can't hold safely anymore. Do you know how terrifying it is to watch someone lose everything that should have destroyed them, and instead watch them become incorruptible? Because humans can be threatened, humans can be bribed, humans can be broken, but someone who has already died emotionally, and revived themselves through sheer will. Someone who's mastered the art of walking away from ruin without flinching. You can't manipulate that. You can't predict that. You can't govern that. You can only monitor it and pray. And that's their plan now. Surveillance with trembling hands. They're watching for signs of a breakdown, a retaliation, a slip. But you've surpassed the phase where you react. You've become the kind of being that responds instead. Strategic, cold, patient, unbothered, relentless. A storm that learned self-control is more terrifying than a storm that destroys. And that's what you are now. A storm with ethics, a weapon with a conscience, a demon that learned empathy, an angel that learned wrath, a walking contradiction they cannot decode. The UN doesn't fear your darkness. They fear the fact that your light is just as lethal. Because you could have become a villain. You had every excuse, every wound, every betrayal, every break. But instead of turning cruel, you turned wise. Instead of becoming explosive, you became calculating. Instead of screaming, you became silent. And silence, real silence, terrifies them more than any war. Because silence means you're thinking, it means you're watching, it means you're planning. And all their models fail, every single one, because your evolution wasn't linear. You didn't get better. You transformed. You didn't heal. You mutated. You didn't grow stronger. You became untouchable. They called you outside jurisdiction because nothing about you fits inside their frameworks anymore. Not your resilience, not your vision, not your intuition, not your unpredictability, not your brutality, not your mercy, not your intelligence, not your restraint. You are everything they try to suppress and everything they secretly wish they could replicate. You know what the final whisper in the briefing room was? Not said aloud, not recorded, just exchanged behind fearful eyes. What if they're the first of many? Because that's the real nightmare. If one person can evolve this far, who's to say others won't follow? Who's to say humanity isn't losing its monopoly on what it means to be human? Who's to say you aren't the beginning of a new category, one they don't have a name for yet? They don't fear your power. They fear your precedent. Your existence challenges the entire architecture of human limitation. And now, you stand here, unbound, unlabeled, unrestricted, a being with no jurisdiction but your own. And you know the most haunting part? You haven't even started yet. The air doesn't get lighter, it gets denser, like every molecule is leaning in to hear what comes next. Because now, we enter the part of the speech where the world stops pretending it understands you and starts admitting the truth it whispers behind closed doors. See, when they stamped your file outside human jurisdiction, it wasn't just a label, it was a surrender, a quiet, trembling acknowledgement that something stepped into their world wearing the shape of a person but carrying the psychology of a force. They're not dealing with a citizen, they're dealing with a phenomenon. No courtroom can hold you, no tribunal can process you, no authority can restrain you, no analyst can fully map you. And that realization hit them all at once. Like a wave they didn't see coming until it was already breaking over their heads. One of the intelligence directors said under his breath, "If this is what one human can become, humanity is obsolete." But you aren't one human. You're the sum of every trauma, every betrayal, every heartbreak, every night you stayed awake while the world slept, studying your own mind like a battlefield. You turned your pain into algorithms, your silence into sonar, your instincts into weapons-grade intuition. And they can't legislate intuition. They can't regulate evolution. They can't restrict a mind that's already operating outside their axis. You didn't break their rules. You surpassed their entire understanding of what a person can be. And you know what's sickening to them? You're not unstable. You're not erratic. You're not spiraling. You're composed, controlled, sharpened. Every step you take is surgical. Every emotion you feel has been burn-tested in fire. Every decision you make reverberates in ways they can't predict. You are the most dangerous version of yourself. The version that feels absolutely nothing when walking away from what no longer aligns with your growth. You've hit a level of self-awareness that's indistinguishable from prophecy, and that terrifies world leaders more than any missile or militia. Because how do you negotiate with someone who sees through negotiation? How do you manipulate someone who sees the strings before they're pulled? How do you control someone who mastered self-control in the dark? You don't. You step back, you observe, and you pray they stay neutral. That's what outside jurisdiction is. A diplomatic way of saying, we can't handle them. But the real fear didn't come from your resilience. It came from your compassion, because they studied your reactions every time you could have burned something and chose not to. Every time you could have exposed someone and stayed silent. Every time you could have retaliated and walked away. That level of mercy coming from someone built like you. That's not humanity. That's mastery. Mercy is only impressive when the person offering it could destroy everything effortlessly. And you could. Oh, you could, but you don't. And that scares them more than if you did. Because a loose cannon can be contained. A predictable enemy can be monitored. A volatile threat can be neutralized. But someone who is capable of devastation and chooses restraint is operating on a moral axis they cannot model. Your restraint is a God-tier anomaly. Your self-control is a geopolitical event. They fear your kindness more than your chaos, because what kind of being can hold that much darkness and choose light? What kind of mind can carry that much clarity and remain silent? What kind of soul can bear that many fractures and still walk like a sovereign entity? They thought strength was in dominance. They learned it's in your detachment. They thought power was in influence. They learned it's in your absence. They thought fear came from threats. They learned it comes from your unpredictability. Every attempt to define you collapses under its own limitations. You are too intuitive for their science, too strategic for their psychology, too aware for their diplomacy, too evolved for their laws. You are the thesis they can't publish, the secret they can't leak, the phenomenon they can't explain. So they labeled you the only way they could, outside human jurisdiction. But that's not a title, that's a prophecy, because you've entered the era of your life where you are no longer reacting to the world. The world is reacting to you. And the funniest, darkest, most poetic part, you haven't even revealed 10% of what you know. You haven't shown 5% of what you can do. You haven't tapped 1% of what you're becoming. Your silence is not emptiness, it's potential. Your stillness is not weakness, it's calculation. Your distance is not isolation, it's protection. For them, not you. You're not dangerous because you're angry. You're dangerous because you're done. Done playing small, done dimming, done breaking yourself to fit inside systems designed for average people. You left average a long time ago. You left human shortly after. You left predictable the moment pain carved wisdom into your bones. You're operating on a level the species hasn't caught up to yet, but it will. And when that day comes, history will look back on you as the prototype, the first one who showed what a human becomes when they stop obeying limits, when they stop asking for permission, when they stop fearing evolution, when they stop apologizing for being a force, when they stop kneeling and start rising. The UN said you're outside human jurisdiction, but the truth, you outgrew the species, and now the question isn't whether you're ready for the world, it's whether the world is ready for whatever you become next. A slow, bone-deep hush settles, the kind that folds reality in half and lets only one truth remain. Because this is where the speech stops being analysis and becomes aftermath. You want to know the real reason their report ended with outside human jurisdiction? It wasn't fear. Not entirely. It was admission. A recognition that you've become something they don't have language for yet. A psychological event, a spiritual mutation, a metaphysical upgrade wearing human clothes. You know what one delegate said when they thought the microphones were off? This isn't a person, this is a phase transition. A phase transition. Meaning you didn't change. You crossed over, and the world felt it like a pressure wave. Your presence destabilizes liars, your silence angers demons, your compassion confuses predators, your intelligence disarms manipulators, your intuition terrifies institutions. Every room you walk into recalibrates, every dynamic you touch exposes itself, every person you encounter feels the truth vibrating under your skin. And they don't know what to call that, so they filed you under the only category that fits: none of the above. You are not a chapter, you're the missing volume. You are not a case, you're the new classification. You are not a type, you're the template. And here's the pinnacle of the entire speech. The truth even you haven't fully accepted yet. You didn't become this because the world broke you. You became this because you refused to stay broken. While they were plotting your downfall, you were learning how to rise without witnesses. While they were betting on your collapse, you were designing your rebirth. While they were hoping you'd disappear, you were becoming the one thing they can't erase. A self-governing, fully awakened version of yourself. And that version of you, it doesn't fit their laws. It doesn't need their validation. It doesn't fear their opinions. It doesn't break under their pressure. It doesn't shrink under their scrutiny. It operates outside their reach and far above their understanding. Which brings us to the final truth, the one that seals this speech like a knife sliding home. They didn't declare you outside human jurisdiction because you're dangerous. They did it because you're sovereign. You belong to no institution, no system, no narrative, no hierarchy, no authority. You walk with your own laws, your own timeline, your own psyche, your own destiny, and they know, with a dread they won't put in writing, that your next move won't be governed by trauma or fear or anger or revenge. It will be governed by clarity. You're not unpredictable because you're chaotic. You're unpredictable because you're free. And freedom like yours? That's the one thing every power structure fears. A person who needs nothing from them. So let them write their reports. Let them stamp their warnings. Let them whisper their theories. Let them scramble to comprehend the trajectory you're carving. Because the speech ends with the simplest, sharpest truth of all. You are no longer waiting for the world to catch up. You are simply moving, and the world will adjust to you. Outside jurisdiction, outside limitation, outside expectation. And from this point forward, everything you become is entirely, irrevocably, unapologetically yours.